Hello everyone, welcome to this review. I believe it was the happy video game nerd that said Darkwing Duck is a poor man's Mega Man. I disagree. Darkwing Duck is just Darkwing Duck. I mean, yeah, it has similarities to Mega Man, but that's just because it's from the same company that made Mega Man, possibly some of the same staff members. So while I will note some similarities to Mega Man in this review, I will not be reviewing Darkwing Duck as a Mega Man game. In fact, let's start with the level select feature. While it's obviously similar to Mega Man's level select feature, it's not like Mega Man is the only game out there with the feature. Heck, Super Mario Land 2 let you choose entire worlds in any order. What I like about the level of select in this game is it doesn't provide you all the levels at once. It only gives you a few of them at a time. That pretty much allows the game to have some sort of a difficulty curve while still allowing you to choose the path that you want. And speaking of difficulty, is this game hard? Well, yeah. While I didn't have too much trouble in this Let's Play, I remember getting plenty of game overs when I was a kid. Though that may partly be due to the old Game Boy's hard-to-see screen. But even now, all those one-ups that the game gave me, I kind of needed them. I mean, how many times did I die in this Let's Play? 19? So this game definitely gives an acceptable challenge. By the way, I didn't mention this during the Let's Play, but if you get a game over, you have a choice between retrying the stage from the start or choosing a different stage. As far as I can tell, there are an unlimited amount of continues. Now let's talk about the stages themselves. Even though there's only 7 stages in the entire game, I think that's a decent length considering the game has no save feature. It's really meant to be played in one sitting. It probably helps that the stages are very different from each other. I mean, sure, basic platforming elements are there, but each has its own theme. In fact, each has its own theme song, which is pretty cool. But I like how you don't have like multiple grass stages, multiple cave stages, and that sort of thing. You have the bridge, the city, the sewers, the forest, the tower, the warehouse, and the ship. And each has its own obstacles to deal with, like the lights in the sewers or the waterfalls in the forest. And while many of the game's enemies are just your typical Capcom bad guys, like those basketball-throwing rats, I'm glad Capcom was able to include many of the game's villains as the bosses. Though again, I really have to wonder why they created Wolf Duck just for this game. I mean, Darkwing Duck has plenty of villains to choose from. Heck, Steelbeak isn't the only big-time foul agent. What about Ammonia Pine? Anyway, I should talk about the game's power-ups. You have the lightning gas, the heavy gas, and the arrow gas. And while each of them has their own uses, the arrow gas is by far the most useful power-up in the game. It might only be a straight shot, but it counts for double damage, while all your other weapons only count for single damage. I mean, look how fast I was able to beat Liquidator with it. Plus, you're able to use the arrows as platforms. So even though it can't hit enemies above or below you like the heavy gas and lightning gas, it is easily recommended that you pick that weapon up and don't really bother with the other 2 weapons. That said, I can't really say that's a bad thing. There's just something special about grabbing an overpowered weapon and mowing over the bad guys with it. I imagine it's sort of like the feeling you get when you use Metal Man's weapon in Mega Man 2. Finally, let's compare Game Boy Darkwing Duck with the NES version of Darkwing Duck. Again, both games are essentially the same game. The main difference between the two is that the Game Boy's screen size is smaller than a TV, so the edges of the levels had to be trimmed to fit on the screen. Well, that and the Game Boy only allows for 4 colors on the entire screen. The fact that they were able to port an NES game to the Game Boy is pretty cool. That said, I can't help but notice a few elements were missing. For example, in Wolf Duck's NES stage, the scenery includes a few parked cars, and of course in Megavolt's NES stage there was a ship scene in the background at the start of the level. Like I said, that's probably Steelbeak's ship in the distance. I don't know why those details were removed for the Game Boy version, whether there wasn't enough memory for the textures, or if it was a limitation with the color scheme. It's kind of a shame that they weren't included, but no big deal. There are also a few enemies in the NES game that were missing in this version. Again, might be a memory issue. After all, Game Boy cartridges were rather small compared to NES cartridges, so they might not have been able to afford memory that small, especially since this was a licensed game. I also heard that the Game Boy version was developed sometime after the NES version, so maybe that has something to do with it. With all that said, now comes the big question. Would I play this again? The answer is yes. Not only will I play this game again, but I've already played this game multiple times. I'll admit, it's not one of my favorite games. The copy that I've Let's Played here is actually a rebuy because my previous copy I lost interest and got rid of it. Obviously though, I regretted that decision and bought another copy, which you just saw me Let's Play. I mean, for a Disney licensed game, it's pretty good. By the way, does anybody know where the second bonus room is in Megavolt stage? I just can't find it. I mean, it's not in the same spot as it is in the NES version. I'm beginning to think that they just forgot to put it in.